It's at the point of the build right now where it's time to actually get this thing started. I don't know when the last time was when I actually had this thing running, so that's what I'm going to do. But before I do that, I'm going to walk around the entire bike with, you know, the 10mm, the 12mm socket, spanners, Allen keys, and just tighten everything up. Just make sure that there's nothing that can come loose, because if I do get it started and it does run okay, I may take it for a quick little spin just to see how it feels, see if any changes need to be made, really check on that suspension at the back to see how that feels, because, you know, I have put that swing arm on a bit of an angle. I want to see how that goes, and just feel the brakes, make sure everything's working okay. So this is just a bit of a pre-run, just to feel the bike out, find any problems that I may have before I completely strip it, and then obviously paint everything and then put it all back together again. So yeah, let's do that. So I'm pretty much ready to go. This guy here I purchased and I would not recommend them. The lid isn't splash proof even. This valve here literally just doesn't stop. There's an on off and it just literally doesn't turn off, so I've had to put my own in. But it'll do what I need it to do now since I've put that in there, and as long as I don't, you know, bang it around too much, it shouldn't splash out. Okay, moment of truth. Let's turn that key and see what happens. Oh, we have a fuel leak. It would seem we have a couple of waterfalls going just here and here, so I can't go any further until I figure out what's going on there. So simple fix. I thought it was going to be something more. It just turned out to be this guy here, the actual drain screw. Just needed to be tightened up. It was just like a quarter of a turn out, and that's all it needed, just to be tightened right up. And we have no leaks and the fuel's on, so let's try again. So far we have one cylinder down. Would seem that we don't have this cylinder working, so what I'm going to do is do the obvious and just check the spark first before I go any further. Well, we know it's not spark because we're definitely getting spark, so we'll put this back in again. But before I do, I'm just going to put a tiny little squirt of fuel in the cylinder and then put it back in, and if it fires, then we know that the fuel's not getting through from the carburetor. So what I'm about to do now is just check the voltage of the battery whilst it's running to see if the regulator rectifier is actually doing its job and not overcharging this. I just want to find out for a fact if it's doing what it needs to do. So you're not going to be able to hear too much of me talking, so I thought I'd just tell you what I'm doing so you can actually see. I'll set the camera up so you can see the voltage on here. Look what I just found underneath the hydraulic lift table. The 12mm. I haven't really needed it just recently. I was using it to tighten everything up and obviously it dropped off the table. I must have kicked it under. I'm glad I found it because I would have been looking for that for a while. Alrighty, let's put the tank on. And there's that 12mm I would have been looking for. You have no idea how exciting it is to take that thing for a spin. Since it's been sitting here for so long, I've been working on it. It's been a while since I started it, but it's been even longer since I took it for a spin. I've only taken it for a quick little spin around the block here. I don't want to take it too far. I just want to find out all the little things that may or may not be wrong with it. Might look at the exhaust, but yeah, it's pretty damn exciting. So this muffler is pretty much straight through all the way. There's really not much to it. And as you can see, the torch in the end. So what I'm gonna do is, or what I did do, was I actually put one of these in the end of the actual end of the pipe, and I've got the little stopper all the way towards the end. I will eventually change out this muffler and get something, either make myself something with like baffling in it, or may even purchase one, I don't know. But at the moment, let's play with what we have and see what we can get out of it. So I've just come back from a decent ride on this. What I've done is I've taken the muffler that I had made. This is one of the original ones. The one that was on it was also one of the original ones, but I've chopped it down and it's just too open. The sound is just not right. So I've got one of these on it just to quieten it down a bit so I can take it for a ride and not have everyone turning their head looking at me. So it goes pretty well. I'm pretty stoked with how everything's working. There's a few issues. There's a few things that I'll mention. I'm not going to mention the carburetors just yet. That's another video. I've got DNA filters on it at the moment. Not too sure if I'm going to run with those depending on the budget. I've just got them on there so that I can test it. But the issues that I have had with the exhaust, I've already burnt my leg with that exhaust that's on it. Whatever I do with the exhaust, I'm thinking either making my own, buying one that's already pre-made, or modifying the one that's I've already modified to try and make it quieter. Not so much quieter, I guess yes, quieter, but make it a better tone. Now the other issue that I found just now is a leak. So this leak here is coming from the top of the shock, which means that seal is not obviously doing its job. So I need to address that before it gets too bad. The bike still needs to come apart yet, so I'm not too concerned about little things like this. This is the whole point of, I guess, doing little test runs and just seeing what happens and what breaks and what needs tightening and fixing and replacing and all that sort of stuff. So that's the first issue. Hopefully there's not too many more, but yeah. So when I did these actual shocks, I replaced the seals, and I did notice there was a little bit of pitting. I didn't think it was going to be that extreme, but now I look at it, I can understand why it's leaking. In the actual chrome itself, there's little tiny rust spots, and those are, it's really hard to see on camera, but basically what they've caused is just going in and out of that actual seal has caused it to leak, because there's enough of them that's actually broken the seal and letting the oil out. Now, this is a CX500C, so I believe the shocks might be slightly different between the models on the CX500s, but this is an 81 model, and I've hunted around to see if I can find a second-hand, even just the shock tube rather than just the whole forks, just one, because it's only one that's leaking. Failing that, I'll Well, there's a couple of options, one of which is getting them re-chromed. Now that's an expensive option. I don't know exactly what it's going to cost, but it's going to blow the budget, let's just say that. The other alternative is, if I was going to blow the budget by quite a lot, I would do a full front end conversion on this bike. That's something that I had planned on doing anyway, maybe, depending, you know, how it rides with the original old school shocks. But as it stands right now, I need to do something. I can't leave it as is, because this is leaking, and it's bad enough where it's obviously, you know, it's literally pouring out. Like, you can see it running down and dripping on the actual ground. So it's pretty bad. So I don't know what I'm going to do. At this stage, I'm going to keep hunting around to see if I can find a second-hand set that are in decent condition that can continue this build and keep it under the budget. So I am a little bit bummed out that this has happened right towards the end of the build, as in, you know, it's not quite finished yet, but it's getting very close to finishing, and there's always going to be surprises. And so if you're putting together a build yourself, or you're putting together a budget for a build, always add to it, because something like this can pop up and just throw it right out of proportion. I'm going to do my best to try and hunt around for a second-hand set of forks for this. So it's the CX500C. I think those forks are a little bit different to the other CX500s. So that's something I'm going to be on the hunt for, to try and get this build completed under budget. But that's it for me. Have an amazing day, and I'll chat with you in the next video.